Call to order the regular Common Council meeting, Monday, October 21st, 7 p.m. Roll call.
Webb?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Thomas? Marcomas?
Yes.
Christomas?
Yes.
Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kind of different having a lot of voices behind us saying that because it's usually pretty quiet out there. Confirmation of appropriate meeting notice.
Meeting was noticed on Friday, October 18th. Agenda is posted at BMO Harris Bank, Library, Post Office, and City Hall.
Under the council acceptance of the agenda, I'd like to switch under personal appearances. I'd like to switch A and C around. We'll start with C, B, A, if that's okay.
Motion to accept council as stated.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so under personal appearances, the next item is a presentation to Lieutenant Bob Wolgren on his retirement from the city.
Pretty soon you won't have to listen to him do that.
I'll start by reading this, the easy part for us. Service award. We hereby express our sincere appreciation to Lieutenant Robert Wolgren in grateful recognition of 23 years of dedication, hard work, and loyalty as an employee of the City of Edgerton. 1990 to 2013. And award this certificate from the City of Edgerton. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure the last 23 years. We'll miss you. Now on behalf of the city, I'll give you this clock so that you can stop complaining about not having any town. Tom, I want to say something personally too. I was here in the city of Livonia when you came on board, and saw you progress throughout the years in the ranks, and you were so professional to your job, yourself, your demeanor, to the citizens of Edgerton, and to your job. I thank you personally also. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Best wishes for the future.
I'd like to give you the empty box.
I'm overwhelmed. It's been a wonderful career. I have almost 30 years in law enforcement, and I was thinking about this. I've had people say, "You're going to miss it," and "You're going to miss it, you're going to miss it." Yeah. But what I'm going to miss is the community. Is guys I work with, my boss, my friend, people that council, city hall people. I'm going to miss. That's what I'm going to miss the most. I'm going to keep working, but I'm going to work for Van Gelder Bus. I'm going to keep driving. So I still have something to do. Thank you all so very, very much.
You bet, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
You bet, Bob. You bet.
Had the pleasure to work with Bob on fire and EMS side, and I was kind of glad we're on the same side because I know how dedicated he's been over the years to doing his job. And if I was on the other side, I don't know if I'd want to be sitting here with him. So thank you again, Bob. Now we'll go to B. Carol Green to present the petition for referendum question by Citizens United Group.
My name is Carol Green, and I am a resident of the city of Edgerton. There is a growing movement in our country called Move to Amend, with the goal to amend the Constitution of the United States to put more control of our country back in the hands of human beings. I am here tonight to ask you to pass a resolution to make it possible to remove the tremendous influence of money in our political elections. We still have laws on the books across the country limiting donations to politicians and political campaigns. However, every one of those was struck down on January 21st, 2010, when the United States Supreme Court ruled that local, state, and federal governments cannot regulate corporate influence in politics. With the 5-4 decision in the case of Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, the court declared that corporations are persons within the meaning of the U.S. Constitution and are therefore guaranteed the same constitutional rights as natural persons, and that money is speech. Therefore, corporations, unions, and extremely wealthy individuals can spend unlimited amounts of money in political elections. Before Citizens United, the U.S. Constitution's Bill of Rights protected the rights of American people. Corporations existed as legal fictions to serve the needs of we the people. For over 200 years of American history, corporations helped the United States of America to prosper without explicitly being granted rights reserved for human beings. As creations of the state, corporations were granted privileges which could be revoked, not constitutional rights. Since Citizens United's skyrocketing campaign expenditure that shuts out candidates who cannot or will not raise thousands, even billions of dollars in campaign contributions, allow corporations, unions, other legal entities, and extremely wealthy individuals to financially support and effectively influence the election of entire slates of candidates. A pay-to-play culture and public policy making that concentrates power in the hands of those with the most money results in politicians who fall into the trap of doing the bidding of the big money entities. The political voices of flesh and blood American citizens are being muffled and silenced. Small businesses do not fare as well as you might think either. With corporations making the laws to favor themselves, it makes it harder for small businesses to compete. A poll in the Salt Lake Tribune, commissioned by the American Sustainable Business Council, found that 66% of small business leaders said the Citizens United decision has hurt them, and 88% said money has a negative role in politics. Corporate tax breaks mean less money going to local governments, and I'm sure our city of Edgerton could have used that money for upkeep and other things. Communities across the country support passage of an amendment to the United States Constitution stating basically that corporations, unions, nonprofits, or other such organizations are not people and money is not speech. So far, 16 states and 23 jurisdictions, 11 in our area alone in Wisconsin, have passed either a resolution or referenda calling on the U.S. Congress to pass a constitutional amendment saying corporations are not people and money is not speech. We would like to see Wisconsin join those 16 other states calling for the amendment, and we are asking for your support. I, as a qualified elector of the city of Edgerton, request that a resolution be adopted by the Common Council, or preferably refer to a vote of the electors pursuant to the provisions of Section 9.20 of the Wisconsin statutes. To ensure that this be on the ballot, we needed to gather 279 signatures from residents of the city of Edgerton. At this time, I would like to present to the mayor our petitions with 363 signatures.
Thank you. And I will pass those on to the clerk. And could we get a copy of your
Oh, sure, I can make some
Okay, it's-
copies, I don't have any extra with me.
Maybe we can get somebody to make some before you leave here tonight.
Oh, okay.
It's all recorded, but the written part would be
Yeah.
convenient.
Is that on the computer? Is that on your computer?
Yeah. Okay, so- I need some.
Oh,
And I'll give you these. Cindy, I'll give you these. Have done what I need to right now. Well, thank you. And Mr. Green, you had something you wanted to speak on?
Yes, the same thing.
Okay.
My wife has presented the intellectual, the facts, what's happening all across the United States. Anyway, my name is John Green, and I've lived here for 26 years, since 1987. I'd like to put forth a few reasons why this should be and should be on the ballot, as well as a resolution by the council. We have 60 days to collect these signatures, and in less than 20, we stopped because we were 30% more than the required number. Now, corporations and people, you know, 70%, there were 7 out of 10 people that were contacted were in favor of this and signed. 2 people said, I don't sign anything, out of 10. One person we ran across said, no, corporations are people, and money is free speech. Well, I totally disagree with that, so that's why I wanted to put my 2 cents in here. And if anybody thinks that corporations are people, try driving in a carpool lane with your corporation papers next to you. Try setting a place every night at your table and setting your corporation papers there, and see if your grocery bill goes up. If it doesn't, it probably wasn't a person sitting there. So corporations are not people. Money is not free speech. And I'd like to thank the people who did the most of the work collecting these signatures. They did a real good job. And out of the 60 days, it's actually 17 days it took to get this, and it's overwhelmingly, and I'm betting it'll be probably close to 70%, at least 60%, but probably closer to 70% on the ballot that will vote for this. And if for nothing else, I'm really tired of all of these year-long ads interrupting the television stations all the time. I'm really sick of it, and that's what most people say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on anything that's not on the agenda tonight?
I was just going to speak on behalf of this also. My name is Dan Parry. I'm the chairman of the Rock River affiliate of Move to Amend, the national organization. We kind of are in the Jefferson County and Walworth areas. And we have gotten similar resolutions from 8 different towns in the Jefferson County and Walworth area. And we were able to get a resolution from Jefferson County. And we, first of all, did the city of Fort Atkinson and the city of Whitewater. In the city of Fort Atkinson, we petitioned, we got it on the ballot for April 2nd of this year. And in Fort Atkinson, 77% of the voters said they wanted to see this constitutional amendment. In Whitewater, 84% of the voters said they wanted to see this constitutional amendment. And that's typical of what we're seeing all across the Wisconsin and all across the United States. Move to Amend has affiliates all across the U.S. The big problem is that our politicians are in a trap. They can't get out of it. They can't get elected unless these huge amounts of money are spent on their behalf by political action committees that pay for these ads on TVs and so on. And once they're in office, they are expected to support those huge wealthy donors, the corporations and the wealthy individuals. If they don't, they will not be in office very long. Carl Rose and others are actually actively trying to get them recalled, and it's worked. So politicians are in this trap. They can't vote against it because they won't stay in office. We're talking mainly about federal and state officials. And so we need to reverse this so that we can possibly get to the point where the states can once again regulate the amount of money that can go into a campaign, and therefore, so that it's not possible for corporations and extremely wealthy to purchase our elected officials. And then hopefully our officials will once again be responsive to the votes, not to the dollars, to human beings, to we the people, not to the corporations and extremely wealthy. And you've seen how yourselves how this has affected local government, how funding has decreased and your ability to raise funds and the loss of legislative control and so on. So I'd strongly encourage you to put this on the ballot for the next election. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing, oh, okay, one more.
I'm Jackie Shear, live out the lake. I'm a retired teacher, and I just wanted to emphasize, just in case anybody doesn't know, it's a bipartisan issue. I mean, it's not a Republican thing we're trying to push or a Democratic thing we're trying to push. It's just to get down the money that's going into the ads and stuff. Both sides.
Kind of figured that if nobody else with numbers did the 84% and the 77%.
Yes, right.
Anyone else? We will move on then to the minutes from October 7th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thanks, Bob.
See you, Bob.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Move on to Finance Committee.
Okay, we met earlier tonight. Motion to approve the bills and the payroll list in the amount of $125,609.67.
Second.
Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb.
Yes.
Mark Walner.
Yes.
Chris Rowland.
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Thomas.
And that motion passes.
Motion to approve a new Class A combination beer and liquor license for JJ Game Day Liquors Incorporated, 18 North Main, Day Kim, the agent.
Second.
Yeah.
Contingent.
Contingent on the surrender of the license by the present owner. Thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb.
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Mark Walner.
Yes.
Chris Rowland.
Yes.
And that passes.
Motion to approve a new cigarette and tobacco license for JJ Game Day Liquors.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Mark Walner.
Yes.
Chris Rowland.
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
And that passes.
Okay. Next is to consider a contract with, continuing our contract with Dane County versus Rock County. You all should have had a letter in your packets.
Second.
No, we haven't got a motion yet.
Oh, I thought you were done there, Ron. Sorry.
No. Basically, Finance Committee has said we'll go forward with the Dane County contract. We'll have contracts. If you agree, we'll have contracts before you for the next meeting. So my move is to continue the Dane County contract.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Mark Walner.
Yes.
Chris Rowland.
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
That passes.
Okay, motion to approve a bid for basketball court and the park on Hain Road and the handicap ramp on North Main to Johnson Brothers in the amount of $5,141.
Second. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb.
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Mark Walner.
Yes.
Chris Rowland.
Yes.
That passes.
And a motion to approve
Bid for a new furnace to Jensen Company for $2,415. It's a pool furnace.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb,
Yes.
Chris Wellman,
Yes.
McIntyre,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Mark Wellman.
Yes.
And that passes.
And a motion to approve the bid for new countertop for the new shelter at Racetrack Park to Custom Fabrications in amount of $3,533.51.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Webb,
Yes.
McIntyre,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Mark Wellman,
Yes.
Chris Wellman,
Yes.
And that passes.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel Committee.
Yes, Personnel Committee met on Monday, October 14th, and we do have a motion to elect the non-deductible plan for all city employees.
Second.
Any discussion?
For clarification, for those of you at the personnel meeting, at that point, the motion was for non-sworn officers. There's since been a discussion with the police union, and they would also support that motion. So Alderperson Davis's motion would include then, just for clarification, all employees as she stated.
Thanks, Ramona. Yep.
That's good.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Davis,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
McIntyre,
Yes.
Mark Wellman,
Yes.
Chris Wellman,
Yes.
And that passes.
That's all for personnel.
Anything from utilities?
Utilities, no, we met last week and we had budget discussions, but nothing to bring forward.
And speaking of budget, the next item is discuss and consider 2014 budget. Should have been a small packet there with their agenda.
You have monitors. You should be able to watch along. Last time you requested that we have a cover sheet basically of the budget. The only notes I need, I guess, to point out from, you should have in your packet, you should have received a new copy of the budget, which included a cover sheet. It also included the list of capital, major changes in capital equipment projects and operating. That's on page 3 of that budget packet. Starting on page 5 is that summary sheet that you'll see on the screen here. And following that, of course, is the budget. And there are also some other attachments that were requested regarding equipment at the back of the packet. We did receive late Friday verification from the state that the numbers that we are using for the levy limit are in fact the correct numbers. So that is now we have verification that the numbers we have been assuming are correct. So the only other modification that would need to be noted is the change that you passed this evening regarding the health insurance. There was a expected, because of the way the numbers work out, the actual number of the dollars of savings to the budget is about $4,000, not $5,800. So I have, since you passed that motion, I have included here an additional.
Oh, that's the difference between the two? The 58, okay.
I get the math going the right way.
Okay, there you go.
Yes. Oh, I can, yes. Thank you. So if you have any questions or anything, we'd be happy to try to answer them. There's a discussion, 2 areas of discussion regarding borrowing and equipment records. That information is there. I'd be happy to try to explain it if you wish. But at this point, the budget stands at $162,143 to meet your levy limit.
which
So,
I don't know how the council feels about looking at the borrowing packages for the next few years, but if we can work this out where we could get the budget for this year to where we can get that number near zero, and then look at the future things at the next meeting,
Yeah,
the borrowing packages, keeping in mind that the borrowing is, when we do it, it is going to cost us, and it's going to cost us for a while. This debt service chart that was handed out tonight gives us an idea of what we're looking at for the next 3 years on debt service, right around 500,000, and drop slightly then in 4 years, which would be a little opportunity. But just keep that in our mind when we're looking at what we can do here now, and if we can move some of these things.
We could have as much as a borrowing discussion this evening as you'd like. We thought it might be advantageous to maybe try to separate those two items just because of sometimes it's confusing as to what the implications are of a decision for borrowing and how it affects 2014 and then how it would affect future years. Obviously, if you borrow and have a repayment schedule, it affects future years. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have regarding borrowing, but our hope is that we can work on the 2014 budget, and then anything that isn't going to happen in 2014 we could discuss as a bigger discussion at the next meeting and understand kind of the implications of the borrowing over the long term.
The two items that we were talking about borrowing for was the dump truck and the backhoe, is that correct? Street projects.
We started the budget process with the two street projects being borrowed for, never in the budget.
Right.
Besides the stormwater, the two stormwater projects, smaller,
Right.
those were always
Right.
in the stormwater utility.
Two things that we added were the dump truck and the backhoe.
No, there was no motion regarding the dump truck at the last
There
meeting.
wasn't?
No,
Okay.
just the
The
backhoe.
backhoe was moved to a borrowing at the last meeting, but the dump truck stayed in the budget. So that number is that dump truck is in that 162,000 still.
Did we discuss how much total we could borrow without having such an adverse effect going forward as we budget in the next years?
We did not. We provided you with information regarding if you did all four of the two street projects and the two large pieces of equipment, if you borrowed for all of those and you paid it off in a 5-year straight amortization schedule, which has historically been our procedure, it would require a 5% tax increase next year to cover just the debt. So you could strategize the debt and pay it off not as a straight schedule, and those are the kinds of details that we'd really like to discuss with you at the next meeting. And we could have various scenarios to talk about the implications to taxes.
So I want to make sure I understand. Did you say we should discuss tonight the capital projects because of the borrowing, correct? Or is that going into the next meeting?
Well, as an example, we'll use the backhoe. The backhoe right now is in the 2014 budget, but it isn't affecting your levy at this point because you would borrow for it in 14 and the first payment would be in 15. So you have currently said that, yes, we will replace the backhoe next year, but you're going to do it through a borrowing. And so if that motion then effectively reduced your shortfall that you had in your levy, that's partway how we got to the 162 from the 250,000 or whatever it was we started as. So that helped you reach that goal. So then you certainly could this evening leave that motion alone, or you could say, okay, we're going to not have it in the current levy. It's already out of the current levy, but next meeting we're going to discuss if we'll do that project in 14 through a borrowing, or if the other alternative is you remove it by a year, take it to 15.
Okay.
If the borrowing has an impact on your taxes that you're not comfortable with.
Okay, good. So really, we can continue to have discussions on these capital projects tonight.
And we need to.
Good. So I would like a little better understanding about the first two, Highland Street and Park Avenue. So could somebody give me an update on those two? What's proposed? What's the work that's being proposed to be done?
For the utility, Highland is a sewer on the project. Just 400 feet of
And that's not in your budget, just for clarification, the utility
So
budget
you're
contains
saying we don't
that.
want to,
Discuss that next week.
next week?
'Cause it's
Okay,
not
that's
gonna
what I
affect
was
our levy.
wondering.
That is a project that's already expected to be borrowed for, by removing it, it won't affect the 162.
Okay, so we want to focus on the ones that, okay, that will impact that 162.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good, okay. So we can have more discussion next week on these two, correct?
Absolutely.
As well as some of these, I've got quite a few questions on all of these.
That'd be your backhoe.
And the
your streets
backhoe.
would be on the borrowing.
Okay.
So that'd be for future discussion.
Good.
So without the backhoe and the 2 street projects, we still have to find $160,000
Okay.
to get this where we can legally pass this budget.
I'm going to make a motion to reduce the library budget by $26,842 to bring it down to the 1.46% levy increase.
I'll second that.
Could I have that number again, Mark? I'm sorry.
$26,842.
Would that be the library's levy, 1.4% then?
That would get it to the 1.46%, which the entire city as a whole received.
It would be consistent with the rest of the city.
Yes.
Further discussion?
I guess I'd like to speak, if that is all that we are awarded for, our staff couldn't even get the basic wage increase the rest of the city employees are going to be receiving this year. So it puts us at a bigger disadvantage when compared to the rest of the city employees.
The city,
It's just very basic, and we couldn't be able to afford our increase in our maintenance contract that we have to. That's a big blow.
the whole city as a whole got 1.46%. So anybody in the city that gets an increase in wages comes out of that saying they're 1.46%. Just as with now, you got 1.46% the way it sits here. If this goes through, that's where you would have to find money to give your employees that same increase in wages. The entire total increase across the entire city, that 1.46% equals
$20,000.
Just over 20 grand.
24,136 is what the whole city gets at 1.46% increase. And you're initially asking for $39,342. That's nearly double what the city gets as a whole.
Yes, we were asking for an extra staff member so we could continue to increase our revenues. With more staffing, we'd be able to wait on more people. We also were including everything in our budget that the library board has currently been paying for out of their memorial fund.
Anyone else? Motion?
Motion is to reduce the library budget by $26,842 in the budget, or to reduce the library budget by.
And
Roll
I
call.
second that.
Roll call.
Mark Wellman?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Chris Wellman?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Like 135,000.
I will make a motion to eliminate the one lawnmower in the cemetery in the amount of, for the cemetery, in the amount of $10,799.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
You already pushed it off last year,
Yep.
so backing up
Well, you did get a lawnmower last year, did you not?
for the parks.
Okay, so can you use that lawnmower for the cemetery?
Not when we got all the parks to mow.
Well, okay, I don't mean it that way, that you would just have one mower. I just think, how many mowers do you have, Tom?
We've got 6,
You have 6 mowers?
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's all, when the grass is growing in the spring, all 6 of those are going
Okay,
to keep everything cut.
okay. So the mower that you have that you're using for the cemetery, how old is that?
There's 3 at the cemetery and 3 at the parks.
One is 6 years old.
So it still works fine, right?
Sure.
So it works fine. You've had no major dollars put into it, correct? I mean, no breakdowns.
Yeah, just minor things.
Okay, so if it works fine and you have a total of 3 that you use for the cemetery, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you're asking for mowers because of the trade-in value? You just like to recycle them and...
So that it doesn't cost us for maintenance on
Got it.
brakes. Like we spent $500 just on the park one, just this August.
So that $500 on which one? One of the older ones?
On the old park.
And you had that for how many years?
That one will be 6 years old.
So that's less than $100 a year. To me, I don't think that's bad.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion, so.
Was there other expenses prior to that or since that?
Minor things. Well, when it's down, we're not getting any use out of it.
Yeah,
And the only reason it was $500 is because Kevin fixed it. If we would have sent it in, it would have been 2 or 3 times that amount.
so I get that it could be downtime, but I think that's something that we need to, I think when we talk about all of the capital equipment, we need to be thinking about that because it might just be a chance we have to take. If we don't have the money to do it this year.
We take chances every day, Candy.
Oh, I get that.
Whether it'll work or not. with any of our
But
equipment.
would you rather take a chance on possibly an equipment breaking down, and if you take good care of it, and I'm sure you do, and no matter how good of care you take of it, it could break down. That or go down by staff? Would you rather take the chance? Well, Tom, that's reality.
I know it's reality, but, I've got 6 guys. 6 guys are keeping this city together. 6 guys are mowing the parks, mowing the cemeteries, plowing the streets, fixing the streets. So how many more people are you going to cut?
Well, and I'm not...
$1,000 for a mower.
Well, I'm hoping that there wouldn't ever have to be a discussion to cut. People, as long as we keep the budget intact and maybe look at the equipment versus a person. I think about, and then maybe think about, is it worth taking that chance? I know the utilities guys, I remember a year ago, they were talking about not backfilling a person. And when we had the meeting, my big question is, what is going to happen? What's the chance? What if something goes wrong? Or what if you need a person? And they said, well, that's just a chance we're going to have to take. So they've been able to work through it. Now, all I'm saying with respect to that is sometimes you have to take chances, and if it doesn't happen, if nothing bad happens, it's great. If something happens, you deal with it at that time. And I think lawnmower is a small chance to take in the whole scheme of things. If that breaks down.
Well, let's take a big chance then. Let's take both of them. I don't need either one. I'm going to chance it. I'm going to ride it out.
Done.
You can take that plow truck out of there too.
Well, right now, the motion is on the cemetery lawnmower.
Okay. Some chances and not plow the streets and not mow the grass, and we'll see where it goes.
Tom, the point I made last meeting is a lawnmower is not going to cripple the city. I would much rather cut smaller stuff.
Listen to the soccer players and listen to the softball players and the baseball players when the grass isn't cut out there. Do you get a phone call?
You can tell them to call me if you want. Because you know what? I would much rather hear them complaining that the lawn isn't mowed and the streets aren't plowed in the winter, or that there's a big difference. You can live with long grass when you're playing soccer. You can't live with a broken water main in the wintertime.
Into $10,000.
And Tom,
So at what point we have to cut things to get down to that point?
I understand that, but I've got a job to maintain the streets and the parks of this community.
I understand that as well.
And when I've got mowers down, what am I supposed to do? When I've got people ask me, when is my grass going to get cut? When is the park going to get mowed? Why isn't my soccer field getting cut? I've got a game this weekend.
Again, I understand that.
The committee decided that we didn't need a mower this year.
And Tom, it's a more than just that. I mean, you're kind of minimizing it. The discussion becomes, do the taxpayers want an increase in their property tax to keep this stuff going? And if they do, they do. But I doubt that that's it. If it's not just the council decided not to give us a new lawnmower, we're making an educated decision based on the number of mowers, based on how old they are, based on the fact that they've been working pretty good for you, it sounds like, and we're trying to figure out what's the best route to go.
And that's what I do every day.
And I think you and your crew do an excellent job. I really do. I think and I'm convinced you'll continue to do an excellent job. But I'd rather take the chance of having to fix a lawnmower than to think about having to cut a person or give employees no increase.
Then that's why I'm offering all three. Take all three pieces of equipment that I'm asking for, and I'll keep my 6 guys working. And if something breaks down and they got to stand there with their...
Well, I hope they wouldn't just stand there. I mean, I don't want you to take this to...
I came back after being out with a broken hip last year and had to lay under a truck and put it back together with Kevin to keep the rest of the guys going so that we could plow. I'm willing to do that with mowers. I'm willing to do that with the trucks. I'm willing to do that with the backhoe. Whatever it needs to keep my 6 guys at work.
I think that's good.
One question for you, Tom. Did we have lawns not mowed or yards, parks not mowed because lawnmowers were down?
We were scrambling because we were down a mower.
And that was the one that you put the $500 into?
Correct.
How long was it down?
It was down for about a month because we had problems getting parts. So we were pulling mowers out of the cemetery to get our stuff done in the parks.
So that is still an option to do that, it's just you put more hours on them then.
The Randy's and this work plan, they got them too, so we'll make do.
Okay, the motion is to eliminate the $10,799 for the cemetery mower. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Roman?
Yes.
Webb? Webb,
Yes.
McIntyre,
No.
Mark Wilmoth,
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, so since I'm bad guy once, I'll be the bad guy twice. Make a motion to eliminate the lawnmower for parks in the amount of $11,439.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. No discussion. Motion is to eliminate the Parks lawnmower for $11,439. Roll call.
Davis,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
McIntyre,
No.
Mark Wilmoth,
Yes.
Chris Wilmoth,
No.
Motion passes 3-2. 112, 113.
Can we talk again about this? I want to make sure I understand this whole plow dump truck thing. We could borrow for that, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
But I really wish I knew what kind of effect it was going to have going forward.
We're looking at, what, five-year borrowing?
Yes.
And if we did the storm for the Highland Street and the Park Avenue and the backhoe, we're looking at about $450,000.
Yep.
So you're going to
Be doing $50,000 a year more
How about if you eliminated
interest.
if you eliminated Highland and Park Avenue and just had the backhoe and the plow for borrowing?
That would certainly be an option. That's, I think that's the objective of the next conversation.
Right.
Is to, when you put them all together, to have a better understanding of the implications for the taxes. I think we could have that discussion in detail at the next meeting.
So you're talking, Matt, about eliminating redoing the roads, the streets, fixing the streets.
Now, say if you took them out, Highland and
I believe Randy said that the sewer and water could be left off a year or so up there yet.
So how come we weren't going to discuss it earlier? I mean, are we going to discuss it tonight, or are we going to discuss it next week?
Either way is fine.
Okay.
I guess
Because it's not going to impact our
Right.
113, correct?
Right.
But it will impact
Next year.
our next year's budgets, correct?
And I'm fine discussing it, but it's going to become a larger discussion.
I think the idea here is what Ramona is trying to attempt is so we can get this number down to meet our deadline.
Right.
To get comfortable, in a comfortable spot to meet our deadline in early November, correct? So by getting rid of the discussion on the borrowing, that we can focus on this, because that can be discussed later, because there's not a deadline to discuss that.
The largest
Correct,
capital
Ramona.
project in the budget currently affecting this number is the plow truck. And so
Right.
if there's a strong interest in doing the plow truck, then the motion would be to do the plow truck in 2014, but borrow for it. And that would reduce your budget by $130,000. Now, the understanding then, at either tonight or at a future meeting, is that you should have an understanding of what the implications are for borrowing for those projects. So if you were to make that motion...
Tie our hands later on down the road is what I'm saying.
Correct. So if you were to
We
make...
have to be careful how much we want to borrow. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to tie our hands going forward because we decided to borrow tonight.
Correct.
Well, let's put the elephant out in the room, then let's talk about the plow truck right away. Let's just outright, before we decide whether it's going to be taken off, put on, or put into borrowing. So what can you tell us about the plow truck, Tom?
It was a 2002. We put $10,000 into it. It's a longer wheelbase. It really doesn't work good for plowing, but we use it for plowing because we've got 5 new subdivisions since I've started working here that need to be plowed.
On the back of your,
I see that.
okay.
Right, so I see the maintenance and So,
Still a good truck, still can get by.
okay, so it's a good truck and it can get by, but, and why are you asking for it then? Because of the,
The best one to get rid of. That's the one that we're gonna get the most money for. But the other ones are over 20 years old and they're pretty much junk.
okay, so you would look to get rid of that because of the trade-in value?
Correct.
And you said that's the longer wheelbase one?
So really, you're okay with plow trucks?
No, we still need a plow truck. If we get rid of this one, we need to replace it, and that's what I'm trying to do. With a better plow truck. One that we won't tear the fender off every time we go out. So that if you look at the maintenance schedule, you'll see that we replace the front fender about three or four times.
And why are we losing the front fender?
Because it's a longer wheelbase. When you turn the corner, you rip the fender off into snowbanks.
Okay. And this 130 is with the trade-in that you think you're going to get for the one you have, correct?
I'm thinking we're going to get 20 for it. Got my fingers crossed.
So yes, to answer your question.
Okay, so, dumb question.
We'll take the ride. I mean, it's only a couple $100 to replace the front fender. We'll do it again. Throw it out.
Tom, having an attitude like that's not going to get us anywhere.
Well, what am I supposed to do? I've been asking for a plow truck for 10 years.
Tom, we're trying to work with you here, but that kind of attitude is not going to get any of us anywhere.
In the position that we're in. So throw it out. Let's end the discussion. Let's move on.
Is that going to solve your problem?
No.
Okay, then let's discuss it and see what we can figure out here.
Well, what is the problem?
I think so.
When you say solve this problem, what is, bottom line, what's the problem?
At the end of the day, Tom,
The problem is that I've got two trucks that are over 20 years old already that we keep piecing together. This is the best one to get rid of because it's worth something.
and if it makes sense to do this, then we need to do it, but we got to figure out how we're going to do it.
It does make sense, but it also makes sense to fix the road and it makes sense to keep my 6 guys working.
I'm not
going to put anything, I'm not going to put their job in jeopardy for $150,000 or whatever it is.
I understand that, but we got to try and come up with a solution to everything. We don't want to eliminate positions.
Like everything else, let's push it down the road and we'll take a chance.
But then, here's the problem though. Here's what I don't want to do, is push it down the road, and then next year we're sitting here and we have no choice but to get one, and we're in worse shape than we are now. That's why we got to try and come up with a solution.
And we've been doing this for 10 years.
So we need to,
That's what
So I
budgeting
think,
is all about.
I think the next, if we had a comprehensive review of the availability of funds to pay for projects based on our current debt schedule, at the next meeting, it would provide you with some insights into, is our current schedule doable for maintenance and for maintenance equipment and maintaining streets? You'll have a better feel for it, and then you can decide. So if the plow truck, if the answer is, and I think the answer is, you're not going to be able to maintain your current staff level and pay cash for that plow truck for $130,000. So you're either going to put it into the discussion for next week and consider borrowing for it then, or you're going to say, we're going to put it off until 2015 and reconsider it then.
Right.
Those really are your options, again, unless you do staff reductions.
so let me understand, so if I make a motion to borrow for the plow truck, then when we can get to where we need to be, and then at our next meeting, then we can actually look at it and decide if we really can afford that plow truck or not.
Right.
And then decide at that time to cut it.
Plus all the other projects. You can, weigh them all and decide what your priority is, and Tom can help you make that decision.
Yeah, Tom, that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. We're not picking on anybody. Understand that. Because if you need the equipment, trust me, I like my streets plowed as much as the next guy. And if we have to have the equipment, we have to figure out how we're going to get it.
Right.
It's not to be a battle. We got to figure it out together. So.
I don't mean it to be a battle. I'm just throwing facts out there.
And I understand the facts, trust me. I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and borrow the money for the plow truck.
Should it be to borrow, or should we say to put it under capital projects? Is that one and the same?
it's not necessarily one and the same. If you make a motion to put it into borrowing at the next meeting, I assume that there will be discussion, and you may decide, okay, we're going to borrow for this piece of equipment and this project, and the other ones are going to slide. That could all be part of your discussion at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
it's still,
sorry to
that wouldn't-
interrupt.
Yeah, but that's, yeah, because a plow truck wouldn't be a capital project, it would be a purchase,
Got it.
correct?
Piece of, it's
would
a
be- yeah.
capital equipment.
You're right.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we pull that out of the budget and plan to borrow for it.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'd like to add something if I could.
Sure, absolutely.
Some food for thought. Briefly touched on this with Tom. With the constant budget battle, it's been hard for all the departments to get the stuff that they need. Our equipment has been getting older and more used over the years. And at some point in time, you're gonna have to say, all right, now we gotta do something. So, if you're gonna go out and get some equipment, why don't you go out and get a bunch of equipment? Where you have buying power, where I'm gonna buy 3 or 4 trucks, I'm gonna get a better price on 3 or 4 trucks, and I'm gonna get a backhoe, I'm gonna get it all from the same guy, and I'm gonna get a much better price on it. And you borrow for all that equipment. You know, instead of, you know, maybe a truck here or there, or maybe a truck this or that there, get it all at once. Take and borrow for it all at once. Get a good substantial savings on that equipment by buying it all at once. And then, you know, plan for that. Plan for that maybe next year at some point in time, and this will be some discussion for the November 4th meeting, because I remember in our last meeting you were talking about your debt ratio for maybe the next year and the year after being kind of high. So if you can plan on buying a bunch of equipment at a certain time when things drop off, not only can you get the better equipment that the city really needs, but you can also save some money at the same time. Pay some other debts down, get them out of the way, and buy a bunch of equipment all at once so you're done with it. But then the catch here is you're going to have to do that again in the future sometime, because all the equipment will be all the same age. It won't be, you know, this one's 20 years old and this one's 10 years old and this one's 8 years old and that one's 6 years old. It's all going to kind of come due at the same time. So that will give you some more food for thought. Say, well, we're going to hang on to this equipment for 5 or 10 years. When do we trade this in to get our best value out of it? And then go out and do the same thing again. Go out and buy a whole bunch of equipment at once, get the best deal on it you can, and borrow for it. That's just...
This is the debt service graph here.
Yeah.
This line, I don't know if you can see it from here, this line here is this year, 14, 15, 16, drops off in 17. If we borrow next year, we pay back in 15, that'll spike everything up. And it'll take, if we put the whole package in here, we're at almost $500,000. If we put the whole package with the streets and the dump truck and the backhoe, it would spike up to about $550, depending on the interest rate.
Yeah, it's going to be...
Next 2 years, and then it'll come down to, looks like it'd be about $480 then for the next year. Right.
Well, the fact is, we can't come up with enough money to buy one dump truck, let alone...
Well, that's why you plan for it in the future, when some of your loans taper off, where you can slide in and make a big purchase. But when you're making that big purchase, don't forget you're also saving money. When you buy buying 2 trucks isn't the same price as buying 1. And buying 3 is a lot less than buying 2, and buying 4 is a lot less than buying 3. Buying multiple trucks, you're gonna, or equipment, whatever the equipment is. I think there'd be I would think that there would be a substantial savings in buying
The substantial savings isn't going to outweigh the interest you're going to pay on loans.
What if you save $50,000 on buying your equipment? You can say that off the top of your head, but you really have to investigate and find out what kind of money you could save.
If you had to go buy a new car tomorrow, are you going to go buy one new car, or are you going to buy 4 because you're going to save money on it?
Well, it depends on what my needs are, Chris. If I need 4 cars and I can save $40,000-$50,000 on buying 4, or if I just buy one this year and pay $20,000 more than if I buy 4, you know, if there's a substantial savings in there, you're going to buy what you need.
I think the point is that there should be a longer-term plan than an annual discussion, right? And that's the idea of the next meeting.
And you're right. We got to get to that point where we're budgeting for long-term rather than short-term. You're absolutely correct. But right now, we're in no position to buy a lot of equipment. So,
Rachel?
I have a couple questions. The new vehicle you're talking about purchasing that is the traded value, how old is that?
what did you say?
2002.
So it's about 11 years. But there are 2 trucks that are 20 years. So if you're talking about getting a new vehicle, why would you replace the newest one instead of one of the oldest and still get another 10 years on that one? Because then, say you get that rid of your newest one, what happens when your 20-year-old one crap out?
This isn't the newest one.
I think Tom's issue was they don't like this dump truck. Did I get that correct?
It's not that we don't like it.
It's not user-friendly?
Right. And this is the one that we can
Can get more
and get the
trade-in.
for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but then is there a plan for the ones that are older that,
No, not right now.
That'll be next year's
Then
discussion.
you'd have, if he traded in this one, then he'd have a new one. So he'd have a newer one, a brand new one, and then one that's not 20 years old, correct? And then 2 that's 20 years old.
let's say what happens if one of the 20-year-olds go out?
Then we got to
Then
cross
you've
that
gotta
bridge when we
fix
get
it or
to
not
it.
use it. But still, if he gets rid of the truck he wants to get rid of, he's getting a new truck. If you don't get rid of it, he still has that truck. So he still has 4 dump trucks either way.
6.
Or 6, yeah, 6, okay.
I understand what your point is. Why wouldn't you get rid of the older ones?
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand, but
because those seem like the most likely to.
correct.
First of all, you're not going to get anything for them.
So,
Is there a motion on the table?
yeah.
You have a point. I understand your point. But I think at the end of the day, he wants one that's, the 2 20-year-old ones are more user-friendly than
No, there
the
is no
2002. Is that correct, Tom?
Right.
That's why. So I'm going to guess if one of you guys had to take a truck and you had a choice between one of the older ones and this one, you take the older one because it's easier to drive, correct?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they're all old, so.
So is there a motion on the table?
I think so.
Yeah, was there a second?
Yeah, I second his.
Motion is
Yeah.
to remove from the budget and borrow for the contract.
Is there any,
Moved by Chris, seconded by McIntyre.
any further discussion?
Yes, could you read that one more time, please, Cindy?
Motion is to remove from the budget and borrow for the town truck.
So if that's made as a motion, that means we are then going to borrow.
Yeah, I don't like that motion.
It's not.
That's not how the motion is made, and that's what I want to verify with Ramona here, please.
Well, I'm Robert's Rules people. The budget has always been a fluid thing, so what would happen at the next meeting if someone were to make a motion to, instead of borrowing for it in 2014, to include it in the 2015 budget and borrow for it in 16, or include it in the 2015 budget, I think that motion is a legitimate motion to make. Now, if anyone, Robert's Rules, want to make a disagreement with that, but that's always how we've handled the budget in the past, is that until it's adopted, it is a fluid document.
But should that motion be made into 2 separate ones? Taking it out of the budget and then one putting it in borrow?
It could be, it wouldn't have to be. It's entirely
Yeah,
up
this
to
basically
you.
giving us the option to wait until we get better information as far as to go forward to decide what we want to do with the plow truck and the 2 capital projects we have on the books.
And you didn't say next year, borrow for it next year.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wide open there.
That leaves us the option.
Seeing what it shows us.
Going forward, what we can make work and how we can make it work.
Okay.
But the only thing that's actually going to happen out of this motion is it will be taken out of this year's budget.
Correct. Correct.
The only thing that this motion's actually going to take place right now. Everybody understand the motion? Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chris Weldon,
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Mark Wellman,
No.
Glenn,
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
So we'll have the numbers, what that means with a total budget at the next meeting. But through a borrowing.
Yeah, we'll have several options for you to consider.
We'll have a clearer picture
Like
of
you
what
were
we can,
talking about
what we need to do.
I make a motion that we put the park lawnmower back into the budget at a cost of $10,799.
Nope, that's the wrong one.
Cemetery.
That's a
You got your
cemetery.
numbers mixed up.
Whoops. Tom, which one was most needed to be replaced?
Well, the cemetery one's the oldest, but the park one is the one we stuck money into. So you can decide.
Which was the park one?
Both mowers got axed at the last vote, right? Okay, so just put one back in.
So, we might make a motion, then I can ask.
All right, I'm going to
questions.
make a motion to put the park lawnmower back into the budget at a cost of $11,439.
I'll second.
Okay, now we can discuss it, right? So you put money into the park lawnmower, correct?
Correct.
And that is not the oldest one,
That is the oldest park one, correct.
but the cemetery one is,
It's older.
And you got a new parks
So-
one last year.
so you put parts into the park one. Can you guys switch them back and forth from department to department? If you were to, say you were to buy a new one from one department, can you,
We don't usually use the ones from the park out up at the cemetery because they've got a bigger deck on them.
okay?
And they'll swell the ground a little bit more.
But if you could take one from the cemetery, because the reason I'm saying is if we put money into one and it's
Repaired.
not as old as the other one, would we be better off getting rid of the other one? Since they've already put this money into it, spent the
I
money on it.
understand that, but I
Got it
guess
up.
my question there is if you take a cemetery one, put it in the parks, it's got a narrower deck, so then you're doing more mowing or spending more time in the parks, which I don't know if that's a big issue, that's just what I see there.
But you can at least use it when you're not going to use the parks one in the cemetery. 'Cause
Right.
That's,
So that's the only question I have.
I would replace the park one.
Park one?
Yep.
And that's with the motion?
And I
Because that's the one that we use to do the private mowing that we do, so.
So would that give you two new ones, one new one from last year and one new one this year?
Right. And then one would be, I think the other one is 3 years old now, 3 or 4 years old. I'd have to check my records.
Okay, I have no further questions.
You show them listed here as a 2007, 2008, and a 2010 for the,
You never know if that's right.
okay.
Why wouldn't that be, is that on the, in the,
I don't know, Jenny and I updated that list.
Okay. I guess as long as we know which one's the oldest, then it doesn't really matter what year it is, I guess.
So we have a motion and a second to put the $11,439 back in?
yes.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mark Wellman,
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Davis,
no,
Chris Wellman,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Was that shoot it back up to Chris then, any numbers?
5,500 under.
Right there.
Under where we need to be.
Oh, yeah, right there. Okay.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to take the one pickup truck out of the budget in the amount of $16,500.
there a second?
Yeah, right here.
Is there a second?
You've met your goal. You've met the levy limit goal. So it's up to you how much you wish to take out to reduce the levy increase.
We have
at
to
this
be
point.
careful doing that though, correct, or it'll affect our next year's.
Is there a second?
Budgeted levy.
Most definitely.
Just a minute.
No second yet on the motion? And I'll ask one more time. Is there a second for the motion to take the 16.5 out? Okay, that motion failed.
No, you can.
Yeah, I have the same question Mark has.
Mona?
The implications for if you are below the levy limit, the state allows you to carry a percentage forward. Well, at least at this point. There's been a lot of fluctuation in that law over time. So the current law, which is no guarantee what the future law will be, but the current law says that you can carry up to 1.5% of your unused levy over into a future year. So for us, that would be if you reduced your levy to more than 35,000 less than what your levy limit is, then you would lose that capacity. Anything beyond that, you lose that capacity forever. But at this point, we could, the way the law is currently written, it's 1.5% of your total levy. They'll let you carry up to that amount. So,
over to the next year.
Correct, assuming the law applies in future years.
1.5?
Yeah, so it's
And it's
35,000.
35,000 up to.
Yeah. And anything over 35, you said, Ramona?
We couldn't.
Correct.
That's what the state
I got a circular
legislature
reference,
passed.
sorry. What's that, Matt?
That's what the state legislature passed? That's the state?
That's the levy limit law?
Okay.
That we're dealing with right now, but talk about budgets being fluid.
Right, yeah, that certainly has been a moving target over time, is whether you have any credit for unused levy limit.
So, let me go back and ask a couple of questions about the pickup truck then, Tom. Now that the council has some background information on what we can carry over. Tell me about the need for the pickup truck, Tom.
Well, it's a truck that gets used pretty much every day. We put a motor in it a few years ago, and the body's falling apart now.
How many pickup trucks do you have? Two. And the body's falling apart how?
The box is rusting out.
Okay.
The rocker panels where your feet are, right where the door closes against, are pretty much gone. And we had Shane Oren take a look at it last winter, and he just kind of laughed and said, you know, you're sticking money down a hole because it costs so much to fix it. And the worst part is that the motor's good.
Which one is this, Tom?
That 98 Ford pickup.
98, F-250,
Yep,
number 15 maybe?
yep, vehicle 15.
So is that something you'd trade in, or is that something we would maybe put up for bid? Oh,
I hope we get something for it. I think I said $1,000, I think.
I put 15 in, I split the difference, should I not have done that?
We can see, nobody's here at the meeting and nobody reads the paper. Should be all right. Everybody that's here, yeah, it's a good truck.
I've seen
Good if
worse.
somebody, be good if somebody needed a drivetrain, you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that four-wheel drive?
There's no motion. I think it would be helpful for me in the future, and I don't know if that gets to this, what we have here for Public Works. I'd like to have a list of equipment that each department has. So X amount of pickup trucks, X amount of plows, X amount of lawnmowers. I would just like to know total numbers of pieces of equipment.
Right there.
It requires some deciphering for people who don't know your trucks.
This means nothing to me. I mean, I don't know whose is whose.
That's all streets.
Well, utilities at the bottom of the list, I think.
Yeah. Utilities
But
on the bottom.
I think we could add a little more detail that would be
Okay.
helpful, so you
Okay.
know what some of these things are.
Thank you.
You can come and make a visit too, Candy.
You know, that's right. I should, Tom.
Come take a ride.
I think the Public
I
Works
would like
Committee
that.
should meet at the garage and have a meeting there and review the equipment so they can actually see it. I think it would be really helpful.
I do too, and I'd like to know when that happens, because I agree with you, Tom, I really should. I would do that.
It's like we toured the utility plant, it really helps.
Correct.
We'll put one together.
That'd be great.
Do we need to do something with this last paragraph about the Public Works Committee to commit to development of an equipment replacement policy? Or is that something we're just suggesting?
You could do something if you wished. You could agree or disagree, or you could ask the committee to do that.
I guess that's what I'm wondering, is what's our process for this? I would really like the committee to take a look at this and to maybe come up with an equipment replacement policy.
Okay, we can do that.
Good, thank you.
Anybody have any other thoughts? Or should we start going through the entire budget page by page, line by line right now?
Let's do it.
Ready?
Basically reached.
Page 7, start with the revenues.
Take more out, or
That's what I'm wondering. Are we at a safe spot? Should we take more out, put more in? I mean, where are we at with that money, I guess?
You've met your limit, so it's
You've met your
entirely,
limits.
at this point, it's,
But I mean, as far as, like we spoke earlier on the future levy increase, I mean, is there kind of a safe number to be at as far as, to where we might be too low or right where we need to be? I mean, I know we don't want to go too low, but I guess I'm wondering if there's a definite answer here.
there's no definite answer. You have to meet the law, and then beyond that, it is entirely up to you as to how much you wish to remove from your budget so that you are comfortable with what the levy increase would be. So it is really entirely up to you.
And if the law changes next year that says you got to cut your levy by 10% of whatever you did this year, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, then you got, exactly. That's a good point, too.
So I guess I'm wondering, do we really want to be that much under? That's what's going through my head.
To a situation like that.
Or you can't increase it from whatever you had this year.
Mm-hmm.
What's it at right now?
So you got to be careful.
What is what at?
1 point so percent increase? Or-
Well, I'm going to do ignore the math for a minute, see if it'll work. Yeah, this is set up to not function this way, so. It's 3.5 is where you started, percent increase in the levy.
Okay.
So you're you're under that by, Chris, you're doing the math in your head right now while I'm talking. It's $5,000 out of a $2 million or 2.3, no,
The 3.5 was where we could be?
correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then the levy's about 2 million.
And we were at 11.2? Percentage increase in levy was 11.2?
Yeah. So we're like, 3.3 or something.
I think we're in a pretty good situation here. if I'm understanding it right.
And the majority of that 3.5 is being driven by the increase in debt service you're experiencing this year. So part of it is you have the 1.46, which is an increase that's been greater than we've seen in the past for operating, and those are the dollars that are being most difficult to deal with, are the fact that we don't have operating increases. That's what the levy limit law does. It, restricts your operating.
But again, this number in the future down the road it's only going to affect the total increase on operating, not the total.
Yeah, that's what you said.
In the future, it's going to be strictly only affect the operating
Right.
levy.
Right.
Yeah, you can go out and borrow as much as you want, but then you got to go back to the taxpayers the next year when you got to start paying that.
Yeah, increase the
taxes by.
That's what I'm saying, is should we leave it at this, with this much remaining, but I don't know how, Can we take that amount and pay it on the debt service?
And have it affect your operating, and bring it up to,
Bring
no.
the operating levy to,
No.
all right. Then I think we're probably where we need to be.
Yeah, I think.
Maybe we ought to give, what's her name, the fun umbrella for a change.
Oh, the fun umbrella.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it.
The sun umbrella?
Fun umbrella.
500 short. Somebody want to pick it up?
And as long as there aren't significant changes at the next meeting to the operating budgets, then you could make modifications after the legal notice goes in the paper. But if they're significant enough, then we just have to put another notice in the paper, which is, not a cheap notice, certainly, because it's very large. But in any event, you can make minor modifications at the next meeting, even with the operating numbers, after the legal notice is in the paper.
Yeah, that'd be at the last meeting with the public hearings, you mean?
You could make changes right up to the date of the public hearing, correct, at the public hearing.
Yeah.
Are we ready to get on to the important stuff?
Trick or treat hours next.
Yeah.
Everybody good with the budget?
So far. You said you'll have some, the next meeting you'll have a little more numbers there, right?
Okay, we're going to move on to set trick or treat hours. There was some discussion that 4 to 7 is too early, and there were some suggestions of 5 to 8.
I'm going to make a motion for safety reasons to leave the hours at 4 to 7 for trick or treating on October 31st.
I'm going to second that motion.
I think it should just be as long as the front light's on, you can keep banging on their door. But
Well, I don't think, Tom, you don't arrest people out trick-or-treating past 7, do you?
Not like at home. But Mark, I understand your safety thing too, but the reason I brought up is the less traffic on the road, because we got kids trying to get home from school, we got parents trying to get home from work, we got kids running across the street trying to go trick-or-treating. Just trying to change it up a little bit so that.
So you're,
get home and get their kids
I
out.
like
you're
that.
actually trying to do it, you're trying to change it later for safety reasons.
For safety
If I'm
reasons.
understanding it.
Yeah. And I like that. I think
Earlier for daylight reasons, because you're already at 5 o'clock, you're running out of daylight.
And I'm trying to get for kids.
I mean, because that Elbin Street is one of the bigger streets in this town for people, 500, 600, 700, 1,000 people cruise there. You got the traffic going up down Albion and Swift and Rowland.
Is there a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
I'd split the difference with you, but there's a motion on the table, so.
Well, and I think the whole thing is, Ramona was saying that people have been calling already.
Right.
And so staff has been saying 4 to 7 because that's the way it has been. I think next year we should try to get this on the agenda sooner, so we could talk about it and decide if it should change, so the staff isn't in the situation of not knowing what to say.
I got a question. You recommend 5 to whatever, 7, and someone can go out earlier if they so desire,
It's 5 to 8, I believe you said.
What did you say, recommend 5 to 8 or something, Tom?
5 to 8, but you can't go out earlier. If the lights aren't on, you're wasting your time while walking. So I'm just trying to let parents get home, let kids get home from all their school functions,
I go up that school,
settle down a little bit. It's really busy.
I go up that school every day.
I agree.
Yeah, I watch football practice up there practically every day, and it's pretty intense.
Are people hustling because they don't have enough time in 3 hours? Maybe we need to go 4 to 8.
I was just trying to get away from 4 o'clock hour. That's all I was recommending.
That's a good point. Yeah, but
Whatever you wish.
already been, people have been
More
calling.
daylight, stay more daylight. I was just trying to, parents can't get their kids out during the daylight hours if they're not home.
This motion fails, you can come back.
So you're kind
I
of
know,
defeating that
but
purpose.
people have been calling.
It don't matter to me because it's pretty quiet up in my street.
Oh, I
So we might as
I'd like to
well
call a
do that,
question.
But next year, change it.
Do we want a second on that, or should we just go ahead and take the vote?
Just take the vote.
Is that
Could
okay?
I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So staff at City Hall has been already telling people that it's 4 to 7 from calls they've been getting here at City Hall, correct?
Right, because.
Based on previous years.
For the 20 years
Right.
Okay. So by changing it, then that's going to create another issue, so.
That's
all
why
right.
we should talk about it earlier next year.
All right,
I
I
think.
have no further discussion then.
Okay, motion is 4 to 7 for trick or treat hours. Roll call.
Mark Walner,
Yes.
Chris Mullin,
Yes.
Bud,
No.
McIntyre,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
It passed 4 to 1. Mayor, alderpersons, and staff reports. Hey, happy Halloween. I can't think of anything else.
Oh, congratulations to the boys varsity football team for winning Rock Valley Conference champs.
They're conference champs?
Conference champs they haven't been conference champs since 1995. It's been 18 years.
We got 2 parents here that have kids on the team. I
Yeah.
can congratulate them for the work they did with the children. And I've been to the game,
Congratulations, boys.
You bet.
The first playoff game is Friday night here at home.
You bet.
Okay, I lied. I got one thing. Thank everyone for the work on the budgets. Sorry they don't come out the way we'd like them to, but one of these days it'll get to where we can, hopefully. Thank the staff, all the department heads, for all the work that goes into that. Thank you guys for showing up and your input. Looks like anybody got anything? Anybody got anything else? Looks like we got a closed session next.
Motion to go in closed session pursuant Wisconsin State Statutes 19.851C, consider employment, promotional compensation, or performance evaluation data for any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Discuss and consider Dempsey's compensation for vacation time.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Yes.
Mark Walner,
Yes.
Chris